So I figured I'd do a video of the new electronics before I put the front radiator core support back on. Added a few sensors from what it had last time. So starting from the, let's say, driver's side or left side of the car, I made a new bracket here. So this is just some angle aluminum with some riv nuts, M5 riv nuts, and I've got two 3-bar map sensors. This map sensor has been here. This measures intake manifold pressure right after the throttle body. This map sensor is connected to the crankcase ventilation system and is effectively measuring crankcase pressure. So moving left, or let's say right on the car, left from the front, I've swapped out a factory oil pressure switch for an oil pressure sender. This is the same sending unit that Audi uses on the low pressure side of the fuel system. So I've wired him in, and I've wired in the single wire that the oil pressure switch uses. That will tie back to the Arduino as well. So single source for oil pressure, and I'll use a limit on this value to trigger the oil pressure light on the dash, replacing the switch. Stepping further over to the left, down here, which the sensor was there before, but you can see this guy here. That is measuring Emap, so it's coming off of the secondary air injection line flange, and I've built some copper tubing with a manifold to reduce the heat to that sensor. That's measuring Emap. I'm also tapped in on the MAF sensor. I'm also looking at the 0 to 5 volt output from the MAF sensor, so I can directly measure mass airflow without having to request and receive from the ECM. Let's see here, what else do I have here? Oh, this sensor, which I haven't yet mounted, but under here, if I can do this, I've got the connector for him. So this is a 300 amp current sensor, and it's got two outputs, two 0 to 5 volt outputs. One is 0 to 30 amps for low current, better sensitivity, and the second output is 0 to 300 amps. So what I'll be able to monitor is output from the alternator. How much is the alternator pumping out throughout different operating conditions. I will mount him to the main positive wire that goes from here and effectively powers everything on the car. So it's a nice convenient position there. You just need to do a little bit of designing and 3D printing to mount him inside there and get the wiring to run through him. So that way I can ensure that I'm never over drawing from my the factory alternator, 190 amp alternator. All right. So here I'm redoing my water meth injection feed, so a new H-bridge controller. I've got connectors coming this week for that. This is the intercooler coolant pump wiring, and then this guy goes to the temperature sensor for the intercooler coolant temp sensor, sensing the coolant right before it feeds down in through this line down into the intercooler. So all of that feeds in through this harness here, wraps up under the fender well, and goes into the cab through a factory grommet, and then in here. So this is the power wires to power the intercooler coolant pump, also the water meth injection pump. These are the power wires in, so I've got orange is all essentially hot on the key, I've got a large gauge and a small gauge. The large gauge goes to the power guys, to the high current draw. Small gauge goes to the Arduino and microcontrollers. CAN bus, I've got 2 CAN buses. I've got pink and yellow. These are both CAN buses I've added, so it handles e-boosters and the controller in the rear and all that stuff. And then this is all of the wires from the sensors in the engine bay. I've got each one of them color coded in a unique color, so I won't be able to mess them up. And then this is the Ethernet cable that goes to the race capture, monitor CAN bus data as well, and some power wires for the race capture. I've got to button all this up. Then USBs to the Android head unit. So all this still needs a little bit of cleanup. All this will go get bundled and go into a single harness, a single connector, maybe 2 connectors that go to the front control module that mounts up in the dash. So there we go. Yet again, 6 minutes of me rambling about nerd stuff. But I'm almost there. Everything in the rear is tied up. And the front just needs a little more thought to terminate these wires and get everything connected in the front. And then I should be off to the races, figuratively speaking.